So I guess the wildest thing I've ever experienced happened last year, and I still don't know how to explain it without sounding like I'm making it up. But here goes. It started with these little things going missing. I live alone, in a pretty quiet neighborhood, so I figured I was just forgetful. A protein bar here, a sock there, whatever. Then my TV would be on a different input than I left it. Nothing huge, just enough to make me second guess myself. The weirdest part? I'd hear these faint bumps in the ceiling sometimes. I chalked it up to raccoons or whatever. My house is old, stuff creep. But then one night, I came home late from work, and I could swear I saw a shadow move past the vent opening in the hallway ceiling. I told myself I was tired, imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling, so I set up one of those cheap motion sensor cameras I bought off Amazon, pointed it straight at the attic access panel in the hallway. 2 nights later, I got a notification at 2:17 a.m. Motion detected. I opened the clip, and my stomach dropped. There was a person climbing down from the attic, like full-on quietly stepping down the ladder, looking around, and heading into my kitchen. I froze. I was in the house at the time that clip was taken. I called the cops immediately, locked myself in my room with a bat, freaking out while they did a full sweep. They found no one at first, but when they checked the attic, there was a little setup up there, a sleeping bag, some snacks, a small camping stove, empty water bottles. Someone had clearly been living up there. The person was my neighbor's grown son, who apparently had some drug issues and got kicked out a while back. He broke in when I was on vacation a few months earlier, and just never left. He'd sneak down at night to grab food or watch TV. He got arrested. I moved out 3 weeks later. I still have trouble sleeping in total silence because now every creak makes me think someone's crawling around above me. Monday night, I went to sleep with my girlfriend in the house. We're currently renting. We're in a somewhat rural area, so we're not in much of a neighborhood, just off of a small road with a few houses around us, the closest being about 300 feet away. We're both startled awake when we hear a very loud banging coming from our front door. Very rapid and strong hits. At first, we both just lie there and listen. After 30 seconds or so, I check the time and see it's 4 a.m. Okay, something's not right here. I get up and grab my pistol, then hear a woman start screaming from the porch. She yells, "Open the door. I'm having a seizure. Mum, open the door," while she continues to bang on our door with all the violence of someone trying to knock a door in. We're both extremely uncomfortable, so instead of answering, I call the police. I explain the situation and give my address to dispatch, who informs me that someone else has also complained and police are already en route. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just frozen between my girlfriend still lying in bed and the window we have on our front porch that the stranger out there could easily access. She continues beating our door violently and screaming every few seconds until the police finally arrive. They go talk to her, then eventually approach my door and ask if she said anything of any use. I tell them what she has been saying, then they go back to talking to her. My girlfriend comes out at this point, and we step out together to assess any damage to our front door. She immediately looks down and spots a pair of channel locks, similar to a pair of pliers for those unaware, and when we look at the door, there is a multitude of dents from where the woman outside had been beating our door with the channel lock. I hand the channel locks over to the police and have them come back to our front door to photograph the damage. Bear in mind that we have a metal front door and she has made significant dents all over the thing. Police finish talking to her, then come give us a case number. I ask why she was doing that, and all they tell me is that if what she says is true, she had good reason to be panicked. I ask if she lives near and they point at the immediate house next to ours and tell me she just moved back in with her parents. 5 hours later, I hear a knock at my front door. I go answer and it's the woman from last night. Pretty visible drug usage has dwindled her body down to a sickly figure. She says, "I'm sorry if I scared you guys last night. There was a lot going on." Before I can reply, she says, "I can fix your door. How much do you think it would cost to paint over it?" Our front door is so dented and banged up that no amount of paint is going to cover this. I explain that to her and she says, "Okay, well, I'll get someone to fix it." Now it's Wednesday, and every time me and my girlfriend have left to get lunch or go to work or go shop, She's standing halfway out of her front door staring at us, waiting on the case report to be finished Monday so that we can hopefully get a protective order against her. This has obviously been a stressful situation, and me and my girlfriend are having difficulty sleeping ever since. This is a true story that happened to me when I was around 11 years old. This isn't even the scariest ghost encounter that's happened to me, but this is the first time I've seen an apparition with my own eyes. For some background, I've always lived in haunted houses since I was a child, but this Missouri house was completely different. Unlike my previous house in California, where I only heard creepy things like footsteps going up the stairs, or in the attic, toys going off by themselves, voices, as well as seeing things move on its own, I'd never seen a spirit until I moved to rural Missouri. It was in the middle of the day. My best friend Jillian and I were hanging out inside my clubhouse. My parents built for me in my backyard. There was a lower and upper deck. The lower deck was smaller and had wooden window shutters. You could open from the inside or outside of the clubhouse. While we were inside the lower deck, playing on our 3DSs, Jillian told me she had to run over to feed her cats real quick. She lived next door. So I basically told her to do her thing, and I'd be waiting inside the clubhouse. About 3 minutes later, Jillian comes rushing over to the window shutters, opening them from the outside, suddenly and frantically. I looked over at her and asked her what she was doing, but there was no response. She just stared at me blankly. Not to mention, her face was completely grey. I thought she smeared Halloween makeup on her face or something, so I just told her to come inside. She then slams the shutters closed, and I saw through the cracks of the wood her run off behind the clubhouse, without a word. I was confused, wasn't sure if she was playing a prank on me or what, but it didn't raise any alarm for me at the time. I opened the front door to peek around to see where she went. She's nowhere in sight. I then look over to her house next door to see her just now coming out of her house. No grey face paint, just her normal looking self. After seeing that, it shook me to my core. I was too scared to be at my clubhouse anymore, so I ended up hanging out at her house instead, for the rest of the day. This isn't my story, but my uncle's story. He told me this story a few days ago, since we were sharing stories and experiences with each other. I asked him eventually about what was the creepiest or scariest thing that's ever happened to him. What I'm about to tell you is his story. That's the weirdest and most disturbing thing that he's ever experienced. This story takes place back in the late 90s, when my uncle was attending college at Sac State University at the time. During his time there, he would often walk around the campus to get his steps in for the day. Other days, he would sit underneath a tree or on the tables at the outdoor dining area to chat with his friends or finish up his schoolwork. Yet, one day, while he was sitting under a tree doing his schoolwork, is when it happened. My uncle was minding his business when he had seen someone walking towards him in his peripheral vision. He didn't think much of it at first, as he thought it was someone just walking past him. He then noticed that the person was much closer to him, being about 15 feet away from him. He hears a woman's voice say hello to him, which he turns around to see who it is. To this day, he says when he looked at her, she was probably one of the most drop-dead gorgeous ladies he's ever seen. He describes her with vibrant blue eyes, long flowing blonde hair. She wore a pretty dark green dress, and overall had siren-like beauty to her. He continued staring at her in awe and confusion for a moment, until he found his voice. He soon asked her if she needed any help with anything, which she replied by saying yes, and that she wants to chat with him. With my uncle being single at the time, he saw no harm in talking to some girl. He did, however, feel like something was off with her, but he couldn't exactly tell what it was. He decides to talk with her, but to be cautious about it. He asks the lady for her name, and she replied that it's Kelly. My uncle also asks Kelly what she wants to talk about, and she replies that she thinks he's cute and wants to hang out with him if he doesn't mind. My uncle nervously agrees, and they began to talk with each other. My uncle says that surprisingly, they had pretty good chemistry and shared a lot in common when they hung out together that day. Kelly asks my uncle if he wants to hang out with her again, which he responds with a yes. My uncle asks her if it would be alright if they hung out at the mall, which she happily agreed. Kelly hugs him and said that she can't wait to hang out with him again. Fast forward a few days later, my uncle goes to the mall and sees that Kelly was waiting for him there. They spent a few hours at the mall and everything went over smoothly, with no problems. My uncle and Kelly continued to hang out with no problem until the third week. During one of their times when they were together, Kelly asked him if he would be interested in wanting to join a special underground club that she's in. My uncle asks her what it was about and where it's located. Kelly explained to him that it's a friendship club, about getting closer with your friends and building deeper bonds through fun activities. My uncle asks what activities, and she says she doesn't want to tell, as it'll ruin the surprise she has for him. He asked her when the club meeting will be happening, and she replied by saying a few days from now. She also gives him the address and says that she can't wait to see him. My uncle had looked up the address that night when he got home and had seen it was in a sketchy part of downtown. Fast forward to the day of the club meeting. My uncle made his way to the downtown area. He found the place where the supposed meeting was to be held, but immediately got bad vibes from it. The address had led him to an old, decrepit, run-down building that looked like it hadn't been used in years. He knocks on the door, and a man wearing a dark blue robe answered. My uncle says that he's here for the meeting, and asked if Kelly is here. The man gave him an odd look, studying him, and told him to come in, and that Kelly would be there soon. Upon entering the building, my uncle says it was rather nice on the inside, but was dimly lit in there. He said there were these weird lights on the wall, and that there were 5 other people in the room, wearing the same dark blue robes. My uncle looks ahead and noticed a long corridor with a row of weird lamps on both sides. The corridor seemed to stretch on for quite a bit until he noticed that it went down. The robed man tells my uncle to follow him and that the meeting will start soon, once everything is settled. The robed man leads him to the end of the corridor, which leads down a short flight of stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a small path that led to an old wooden door. The path that led to the door was practically pitch black. My uncle had contemplated about turning around and walking away, but something told him not to. They went downstairs and through the door, which led down to another corridor with the same weird lamps. My uncle remembered saying how this corridor had so many doors, along with many turns, that he swore he was walking through a maze of some sort. Both of them stopped at one of the doors, which the man had opened, and told my uncle to step in. My uncle peeked his head in the room, and felt his heart skip a beat when he saw what was in there. He said the room was empty, except for an old, wooden chair, sitting dead center of the room, along with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling that barely lit up the room. The robed man told my uncle to have a seat, to wait there for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that someone will come and get him, and that Kelly should also be arriving at the same time as well. My uncle reluctantly stepped in and went to sit on the chair. The door closed, and the man said he'll be back soon. My uncle had gotten up from the chair and decided to explore the room to see if he could find anything. He was looking around until he noticed something on one of the walls. He looked and thought it was either some random stain or drawing until he realized it wasn't. As he got closer to it, he saw that someone had painted something on the wall with black paint. He looked at it a little more carefully this time and felt his blood run cold when he saw what it was. There on one of the walls was a pentagram symbol that someone had made, with what appeared to be some dry blood marks as well. At that point, my uncle had seen enough and knew he had to get out of there immediately. My uncle opened the door carefully and as quietly as he could and began to quickly make his way out of there. While navigating the corridors, he heard a very loud and frantic pounding from one of the doors. He stopped momentarily to see if it was anyone that needed help, but there was no yelling, screaming, or cries for help. He wanted to investigate, but his gut told him to ignore it and to get out of there. He eventually found the door, went through it, and up the stairs, and sprinted out of the building. Oddly enough, the 5 other robed men he saw earlier weren't there, so he was relieved that he didn't have to deal with them, since he said he wouldn't have known what he would have done at that moment. During the rest of his time at college, he never saw or heard from Kelly again, or whatever her real name was. My uncle never called the cops, and regrets it, as he'll never know if they got caught, who those people really were, and what they were going to do to him. My uncle firmly believes that he was going to either be initiated or sacrificed by some blood cult or satanic cult. He believes that Kelly was used as a lure in order to gain trust and to lower anyone's guard so as to lure my uncle or any other unfortunate person. After that experience, he didn't go downtown for a very long time afterwards, out of fear of being spotted by one of those cult members. My uncle is forever grateful that he was fortunate enough to escape, as he doesn't know and shudders at the thought of what would have happened to him if he'd stuck around or if he hadn't escaped.